Hi everybody, it's Christopher Naiman. Let's do another rope bowl. But this one is going to have a decorative accent to it. And I'm going to flash a picture up here to show you. This was black and white rope and I used a red accent trim. Today we're going to use the same rope. You get this at the Dollar Tree. That's where I got this. You can do this at the Dollar Tree. Alright. Now, what are we going to use to make this? Well, I'm going to use 2 spools of white serger thread. In the photo of the previous bowl I made, I did it in black. I'm going to change it up this time and do it in white. We're going to see what white looks like. And then when I do the accent, I'm going to do the accent in red. And when I do the accent in red, it's going to have 2 spools of serger thread for red. And it's going to have, see, I'm going to have 2 spools of the serger thread in red right here. And then it'll have a red bobbin. Now when I'm doing the white's going to have a white bobbin. Now, the white bobbin I'm going to fill with Dual Duty XP all-purpose for the bobbin. That's what I'm going to use. Now for the needle, I'm going to use a size 16 leather needle. Okay? A size 16 leather needle. Alright, so let's get started. Let's get a move on. Alright, so I've got 2 spools of serger thread going through the eye of 1 needle. Alright, and before we get started, we want to unravel our rope. Now, the beginning of this rope, I found that they were putting some pretty hard end on it. I mean, they melted and it's pretty hard. So what I want you to do is take off that really hard edge there. Just take it off. And then I want you just to lightly hit it with a lighter. Just lightly. And then feel it to make sure it's not hard, okay? Because you don't want that. Alright, so what are we going to do for our stitch? Well, let me move over to my screen and I'll show you my settings. Okay, as you can see on my settings, my width is 7.0. And my stitch length, I'm going to start out with 1.30. That will get adjusted as the rope bowl grows, okay? Now here you can see I have the 2 spools of thread and it's on my thread tower that comes with this machine. It's custom made for this brand and it's feeding through the little notch there that comes with the thread tower, and if you feed the rest through, feed it through and thread it as 1 thread. Even though you're using 2, treat it as 1 thread. Alright, now it's time to get started. So, I don't have any measurements, guys. If you've been following me, you know that I do everything just by sight. So, what I've got here is I'm just going to take an eyeball, a length, and I have a standard foot on. This is the A foot for Janome. It's a straight zigzag foot for Janome. That's what we're going to start with. So let me just start this again. Let's see, what do I want? That'll be good. I think that's good enough right there. Alright, some of you are going to be anal about this and say, what's the width? What's the length? What's the length? So let me look to see what I'm going to use for my length here. Let's do a 5-inch length. Let's do 5 inches, okay? So I'm going to do 5 inches, fold in half, start it underneath here. Don't start on the very edge. Okay, don't start on the very edge, and just, this is a zigzag, remember. And we're going to go over this several times in the beginning. But you don't want to start with a short zigzag because it'll get hung up here, because you're not on, you got 2 thin pieces of rope and nothing's underneath the rest of the foot here, so you want to make sure that because the feed dogs it's not covering the feed dogs completely, so it's not going to feed all that good on a short stitch length. Once we get it going in a circle, then we'll be able to. Alright, so as you can see, my rope that's wrapping around is on the right, so we're going to stop with the left needle position. This machine has a knee lifter, so I'm going to use my knee lifter to lift, turn. Now I'm going to stop in the right needle position, and then one more to the left, and turn again. See that? Let me get rid of this excess thread on the end here. Hey, if you don't have snips like this, these are great. They use these in the factories. You get these from any industrial or industrial supplier or any Notion supplier online. Okay, these are great. All right, so now let's continue here. Oh, I went too far. There we go. Yep, that's okay. So, rope pulls are a lot of fun to do. Sometimes when you don't know what you want to sew, but you want to use your machine, that's when you make a rope pull. And they're great gifts. They make real nice gifts. Okay. It's moving along really nice now. So if you watched my videos in the past on making rope pulls, I want to explain something to you. So the important thing when you're sewing is you want to feed. You don't look at the needle. You're going to look at the split of the rope. You want both sides of the rope to meet in the middle of the split of your foot. Okay, that's how you're doing it. The only time you look at the needle is when you get to the very edge when you want to turn a corner. And the other thing you want to do is you want to unwind from your skein or skein here, whatever this is on, whatever you guys call it, whatever it's wrapped around. Unwrap your rope a lot so you have a lot of loose rope as you're sewing, so nothing's pulling down below. Alright, we'll start with what I just unwrapped now. Yeah, I like making rope pulls, guys. Whenever I need a break from what I'm doing, my leather bags, or with my leather, for example, like there's a lot of edge painting and finishing on leather, a lot of gluing. You have to wait for glue to dry. So while that's drying and finishing, I want to still sew, but so I'll come over and I'll make a rope pull. By the time I'm done with the rope pull, you know, because they don't take that long. By the time I'm done with the rope pull, it's time to get back to finishing a bag. See how nice that goes now? I think this white's going to be really pretty. And it's just going to have a hint of black underneath it. This would make like a nice bag for the winter time. If you have some kind of a decoration for the holidays. And then if you have like silver poinsettia or a white poinsettia, you can glue it onto this and decorate this. Add some bling. It'd be really pretty, wouldn't it? I should have went and bought some artificial flowers to add to this when I'm done with it. Now see, now that it's moving in the circle easily, you don't have to stop and pivot. You could just turn like I just did now. You see that? So you would ask yourself, well, how wide are we going to make this? So think of what you're going to use this for. What are you going to put in this bowl? And whatever you're going to put in the bowl, that's the width you're going to make this bottom. Like say for instance, you're going to use this, maybe you put this, you might put remote controls in here. So lay out a couple remote controls and see how wide they are to know the width of this. Now, if you want to put candy, figure out how wide you want this to fill up with candy. For decoration in the bathroom, how wide you want to make this. If you roll towels for the holidays when guests come, you roll hand towels up, little hand towels to wipe their hands when they're done going to the bathroom. Figure out how wide, how the width of your hand towels, and know how width you want this to be. The hand towels just pile up. There's all kinds of things these rope bowls are great for. They're not just for the kitchen table to put bread in it. Now here I go, I'm going to turn the corner. Watch how I turn the corner. You see that? You can make these bowls in less than an hour. I talked before when I made a video on rope bowls, is once you get into the groove, you can also get into like a dream. Because I call this mindless sewing. Once you make a few, you can make them without thinking about it. And then you can peacefully relax. It's very therapeutic. Very relaxing, very therapeutic. And this just teaches you control, maneuvering, how to turn. It teaches you all that. It helps you understand, and when you practice doing all this, right? Sewing is very therapeutic. It's something you can do that you don't need anybody else around to do it. And that's why I always tell everybody, so what does sewing teach you? Sewing teaches you how to be self-sufficient and independent. It teaches you how to do for yourself. You don't have to rely on anyone else to make it for you when you can make it yourself. And that's part of the being self-sufficient and independent. I cannot tell you how many people apply to be on my Facebook sewing groups. And you have to answer new membership questions. And I have open book questions, and all they got to do is read the group rules to find the answers to the question to be able to get into the group. I turn down more people because they don't read. And we see a lot of people on the Facebook groups that don't read their instruction manuals, and they're asking simple questions on these groups that could be answered if they just open up their instruction manual. So we have a real problem in this industry with people not reading. And I don't know why. People say they're visual learners, but they want people to write answers down for them to read. And if they can read the answer in a comment, they can read the answer in an instruction manual. So, when you're self-sufficient and independent, you will pick up that instruction manual. You'll look up things in it to know about operating your machine. You'll go online, look at different needles to know what you need to use for different types of fabrics. You know, one time somebody asked me, how do you know what needles to use? Well, a lot of it comes with education of reading. And like, for example, this rope, this is, let me see what this is made out of. Diamond braid rope. Let's see if it's got what it is. It is... Okay, now that I'm put on the spot here, I believe it's a polyurethane or a nylon of some type. Diamond braid rope. Great for camping, sports, outdoor, easy to keep organized, blah, blah, blah. But I don't see what type of material it tells me. No, it doesn't tell me what type. But normally these things are made of like nylon or polyurethane or something. But I found that when I was first starting to learn how to make these bowls, and I started using ropes like this, I was getting skip stitches using a universal needle. So I tried a top stitch needle. I was still getting skip stitches. So I thought, what would pierce this very nicely? So I looked at my needle chart and I said, oh, it's the leather needle, because a leather needle has like a diamond point head, you know? And I thought, that might be good. So it pierces through leather, and I'm going to treat this rope like leather. So I tried the leather needle, and it went through just wonderfully. So someone made a comment in one of my videos and said, well, why can't you use other needles? Well, I just answered that for you. But if whatever rope you're using and the needle you're using is working, then stick with it. You know, I'm giving you a guide on what works for me. If you want to try something else, and if that works, whatever you try, if that works for you, then use it. I mean, don't get angry with me. I'm just showing you the success I have with what I use, okay? Sewing also makes you think a lot for yourself. And if you can't think for yourself, you're going to have an issue sewing. And you're going to have an issue being self-sufficient and independent. Years ago, when I was in high school, I had a best friend. I hung out with her. Her name was Patty. And I used to go to her house all the time, and we both played the piano, and she was a sweet girl. And she was my BFF at that time. And her dad and mom were alive back then. And her dad said to me a question one day, or he asked me a question one day, which surprised me when he asked me. He said, hey, Chris, do you know why people go to college? And I said, to get a degree, to earn more money? He said, people go to college to learn how to think for themselves. And I was like, really? And that stuck with me my whole life. Because there are a lot of people who don't know how to think for themselves. And we see that in the sewing world, a lot of that in the sewing world. But I found that really odd that he asked me that, and how I remembered that all these years. Now, I was in high school back then. I'm in my 60s now, and I still remember Mr. Bart saying that to me. Chris, why do people go to college? They go to college to learn how to think for themselves. So we have to ask ourselves, when people can't think for themselves, did they go to college? Because I do see on some people's resumes, on their profiles, where they have professional careers, it looks like they did go to college, but for some reason they don't know how to research for themselves. They don't know how to look up needles. They don't know how to open up their instruction manual, and I don't understand that. So I don't know, Mr. Bart, wherever you are in heaven, I think some people didn't learn how to think for themselves when they went to college. Have you found when you sew that sometimes out of nowhere things will come to you from your past and all the years you've been alive. Something will strike a chord in your mind, and it'll bring up a memory, to make you smile, make you think about something happy. Because when you're doing something that makes you happy, you think about happy things. I told this story many times. My mom worked second shift when we were kids. My dad, he was always working. He had a full-time job, plus he had a part-time job. And my mom, she worked second shift. And when she'd get home around midnight, she used to come home, take her shoes off, fix herself a cup of coffee, put her feet up on a chair, and read the newspaper. Now, who the hell drinks coffee at after midnight? Who drinks coffee? My mother did. Because my mother never sat still. Now, I got a friend named Mindy. My friend Mindy drinks coffee almost 24/7. I don't know how she sleeps at all. Now, my mother only get a few hours sleep every night, just like my friend Mindy does. Those two women are very much alike. I say to Mindy, I say, you're like my mom. You know, because Mindy's raising a very young boy. You might have seen Mindy in her videos. She's got her son that sews, and he likes making rope bowls and stuff, and I featured him in a couple videos. So she's got to keep up with him. Anyway, after my mom would drink her coffee and read her newspaper, I used to sneak out of bed to watch her. Whenever I hear the sewing machine going, I sneak out of bed because I had a real interest in mechanics and stuff, and I thought the sewing machine was so cool, right? So whenever she'd be sewing, I'd sneak out of bed, and I didn't know it back then, but I was a night owl just like my mom. You know, I take after my mom. We're both night owls. So she would be mending things with her sewing machine, and I always thought it was a singer, but it wasn't a singer. It was a copy of a singer under the brand name Grant's. Actually, I think it was Signature or something, but it was sold at Grant's department store. How many of you remember Grant's? GW Grant or something like that? They had them up north. Anyway, I remember on Saturday nights when she was home and Dad was working, she'd make sure all us kids took our bath, had our PJs on, and then we'd have a snack at night, and we got to stay up a little later and watch television. And Mom was in the kitchen, and she had that sewing machine with that cabinet, and she used to make dresses for the little baby Jesus statue, because every holiday, we were raised Catholic, and every holiday they changed the statue to a different colored dress. All right, so Mom, oh, what's it telling me? I'm almost out of bobbin thread. I still have some bobbin thread to go, so I'll just keep on going. So I used to watch Mom make those dresses, and she used to use metallic bling trim and stuff. Maybe that's where I like bling so much in my stuff. But when I sit and sew, I think about Mom at the sewing machine and how happy she always was when she was sewing. And I had a great aunt on my mom's father's side, my paternal grandfather, Aunt Helen. That woman can make a men's dress suit that rivaled Armani. Seriously. And she was an exceptional sewer, a tailor, really. And I can't remember if my mom said she taught her basically how to use the machine, but Mom did the best that she could with what she knew back then. And I don't know where my Aunt Helen learned how to make men's suits, but let me tell you something. My grandmother told me she made my grandfather a sport coat one time, and it was one of the best sport coats he ever owned. So there is a lot of talent in my family. Creativity, self-sufficiency. All right, so I can hear it's coming to the end, so I'm going to tie that off now. Yes. Yep. Yes, I know. It's warning me that I'm out of bobbin. All right, yep, I know I'm out of bobbin. So see, I use that right down to almost nothing. See that? All right, let's put another bobbin thread in. And then we're going to start turning this upwards. But before I turn it upwards, let's see, what do I want to do? Do I want to do a ring of red around here right now? Why don't we do that? Why don't we start with putting a ring of red around here, red trim on the bottom. So let me change to red, and I'll be right back. Alright, I changed to red, as you can see. And just make sure that, lift your presser foot and pull all the threads, all 3 strands of thread, to make sure that it's flowing smoothly, okay? Because sometimes you cannot get it in there properly and you have issues. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to line this up with the edge, right there, the edge of the foot, and I'm going to decrease my stitch length to, we're going to do 1.20, because we're going to go over this whole thing a couple times. So let's begin. This is still a zigzag. Now you're going to see when I get to the edge here, I have to curve this to go onto the next train track. That's what I call it. Okay, see, as it's coming here, I have to start curving it so it gets to this row part here, this train track. Now in industrial sewing, when they teach you to sew, you're using, let me see if I can back this camera up a little bit, because I really want you guys to learn. You get your hand here and you're turning it like this. And then sometimes when you're doing these boat bowls, you can move it out here also. When it gets bigger, you can use your whole hand. Cut this off here. There's a lot of things that home sewers are not taught properly. And I know many of you have heard me many times talk about Margaret Islander. She had a whole set of videos in the 90s or 80s, no, late 80s, 90s, 90s I think it was, late 80s, early 90s, on industrial methods of sewing for home sewers. And they were on VHS tape. Now people say to me, how did you find those, Chris? I said, did you buy sewing magazines back then? And they'd say, yeah. I said, well, it was in the back of the sewing magazines in the classified. Did anybody ever look at the classifieds in the back of those magazines? Then there was another lady back in the back of those magazines. She sold a video on tailoring for making a men's suit and making a men's pair of pants. God, if I could just remember her name. Dark-haired lady. Anyway, she would had this video on how to custom make a men's suit. And I remember she's saying in this video she wanted a new machine. And, you know, women had to ask their husbands for machines back then. Not like today, where women make their own money, they can buy whatever they want. And her husband said to her, well, I'll make a deal with you. If you can make me a suit that I can wear, I'll buy you a new machine. So she did. That's how she got her new top-of-the-line machine back then. That's the story she tells in her video. Alright, so now as you can see, I'm coming to the beginning of where I started, and now I want to turn this down. But before I do, I've got to turn this rope all the way around again because I'm getting this. I don't want to get messed up with that. Alright, so I want to turn it down. I want to knock the stitch length down. I'm going to go to 1. I'm going to do 1.0. And just go over what you just did. All the way around again. sometimes I go over this 3, maybe 4 times sometimes. So yeah, there was a lot of talent on my mother's side of the family. And the talent on my dad's side, my dad was a musician. And my dad's father, he liked to tinker with mechanics. So he liked to play with fixed cars and stuff like that. He was what they call for that generation a grease monkey. I think they call him, that's the name of him more. And Grandpa worked in a factory, a foundry. In fact, my grandparents on my mom's side both worked in foundries also. That's what people, a lot of people make a living back then, is they worked in foundries. Because where I grew up, back in Erie, Pennsylvania, General Electric was a very big employer back then. And people who worked for General Electric, if they were laborers, they were unionized. And when you worked for a union, you made a living wage. Well, when GE moved into town, oh my God, it's like the chip factories they're building today in Boise, Idaho, Arizona, and New York. These factories are going up, and they're creating new mini cities. That's what General Electric did. And there were subdivisions going up, and you know, they made trains back then. So all these little factories, these foundries, started popping up throughout the city, these private foundries, and they would bid on jobs to make parts for the trains for General Electric. And my grandmother and grandfather worked in foundries that did that. So, and those union jobs provided workers a wage that that these workers could buy homes for their families to live in. They had medical coverage insurance to take their families to the doctors. Vacation pay, overtime pay. Nobody was without. Now, nobody became a millionaire off these jobs, so to speak, unless later on, the longer they worked, the more they invested in stocks and stuff like that. But the point I'm making is that when unions were dismantled and jobs were sent away, you start seeing the middle class really dwindling down. And then today, you see the price of homes, and you wonder, how can anybody starting out trying to make a family afford a home today? If there's a labor job anywhere today. And college costs a fortune. So when someone gets out of college, they've got these loans that cost almost as much as a mortgage payment today. So I don't know how anybody does it. Okay, this is going to look good here. All right, going to lock that off. Cut it, and let's take it out and look. There it is. Let me back the camera up for you. Okay, so there's our first decorative trim on the bottom of this rope bowl. Now we're going to change back to the white thread, and we're going to start curving this up to start building the walls. Alright, so I changed my thread to white, and I changed the stitch length back to 1.10. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to begin just a little bit before I ended, and if you have a lock stitch on your machine, lock at the beginning. There we go. So, do you have memories of your family growing up? You know, I grew up, and grandparents on both sides, they came from very large families. There were a lot of brothers and sisters on each side. And you have to wonder, like, boy, how do they survive? How do they feed their families? Well, you know, my mom's grandparents, which would be her mother's grandparents, they came to America directly from Poland. And my great-grandmother met my great-grandfather. From the story I understand, she met him on the boat coming over to America. And they fell in love and got married. They come to America and they didn't know English at all. But back then, a lot of immigrants that came to America, there were neighborhoods for every ethnic group. So the neighborhoods, they spoke their language. And I think there's still a lot of those ethnic groups in New York City area. But back then, during the beginning of the century, you had a lot of different ethnic groups that had their own neighborhoods. You had the Italian neighborhood, the German neighborhood, the Polish neighborhood, you know, the Irish neighborhood, the Jewish neighborhood. So, my great-grandmother, she had a lot of kids. I think she had 7 children. And when they were old enough to push a lawnmower, to shovel snow, to clean the house, she sent them all after school to work at jobs at wealthy Jewish neighborhoods. My grandmother tells me the story of how she used to take care of a Jewish lawyer's laundry. And she would iron his clothes, wash his clothes, iron his clothes. She used to make homemade starch to starch his shirts because he was a lawyer. So, all my great uncles and my great aunts, my great aunt and my grandmother, they would bring home the money to great grandmother. She was smart. She put all those kids to work. Today, you look at people with kids that don't even have that many kids, and it's like putting their kids to work. It's like they enable them and baby them. A lot different today, man, let me tell you. So, during the Great Depression, my great-grandmother paid cash for a brand new Ford car because she had all that money from her kids working. And then my great-grandfather, he worked in a foundry, and he worked with a lot of Polish men, so they all spoke Polish together. So, and my great-grandmother, she never worked. She was a stay-at-home mom. Well, with 7 kids, you know, that was a lot to take care of. But she knew how to make money using her own family to do it. All right, so let's start curving this up now. All right, so let me get around this corner and we'll start. All right, so how do we curve it up? Well, everybody who knows how to make rope bowls knows this, and for the newbies watching, what I like to do is I like to bend this down, hold this up to the side. Let me back this up some more for you so you can really see what I'm doing here. So you're going to hold this up to the side of the machine. You don't press it hard, but you place it against the side of the machine. The reason why you don't press it hard is because you don't want to obstruct it moving. But you've got to hold it up to start making the curve. So now we're just going to keep holding it up as this rope keeps going around. How many of you come from families where your grandparents or great-grandparents had a lot of kids? I had a lot of great aunts and great uncles growing up on both sides of, you know, my mom's side, my dad's side. There were a lot of great uncles and great aunts. So we came from a very large family. And, you know, now they're all gone. All those great aunts and great uncles are gone. I mean, we've become the grandparents now. And it's kind of like it's like a rude awakening, you know? We're the old timers now. I don't feel old. I don't feel old. Except when I look in the mirror and I see those crow's feet around the eyes. When I see that waistline, it keeps fluctuating. That's when you feel old. When the hairline gets thin, looking in the mirror, you're saying like, I remember when I had so much hair. I think what God should have done was when you reach a certain age in life, you should start looking younger as you get older. I think that's what it should have been done. So they say people when they get older, they become wise. And I said, I don't think we become wise. We just have a lot of experience to give advice. So if that's wisdom, that was earned wisdom or learned experience wisdom. Now, how many of you ever said, I wish I would have listened to my grandmother. I wish I would have listened to my mother, you know? Or if I knew then what I know now. So for all my friends who are sewing, when you've got people telling you, go take lessons, go learn, go do this now. Do it now so you don't waste time making mistakes your whole life at sewing and trying, you know, do it now. Go take those lessons everywhere you can. Study as much as you can now so you can make all those beautiful clothes and costumes and, you know, everything for your family and for yourself. And when I was talking to you earlier about my great aunt on my mother's side, my paternal grandfather, his sister, who made suits that rivaled Armani. You have to wonder, where did she learn that? I mean, they didn't have the computer back then. They didn't have no VHS tapes back then. You know, today we've got so much to learn, but people act so helpless. Why? I don't understand it. There's so much that you can research on your own today with a keyboard at your computer and have instant information. But you get people who just still don't know how to research, and I don't understand why. They know how to go to Amazon to buy things, but for some reason, they don't know how to research education. A lot of them don't, and that baffles me. All right, let's keep going with this. So I look back of all the old timers when I was growing up, and I saw how much they knew how to do. I mean, they knew how to do a lot. You know, they knew how to fix things. They knew how to build things. The women knew how to sew. They knew how to make clothes. They knew how to plant gardens. They knew how to butcher a chicken to eat. They were really self-sufficient back then. And you know where the feathers came from to stuff those pillows on your bed? They would butcher their own chickens and save the feathers and put them in, stuff them into pillowcases. They used to get flour in sacks. They would save the flour sack fabric, and they would make dresses out of them, or they'd make quilts out of them. People were very resourceful back then, very resourceful. Not wasteful like today, not helpless acting like today. But then you have another side of today where people are very much learning. They go right to YouTube when they want to learn how to do something, and that is great. But we see a lot of people who don't do that, and then we still have an issue in society where people are not self-sufficient and independent. But we have a lot of people who are. Like, I wanted to learn how to replace a faucet in my bathroom. So I went to YouTube, saw the video on the brand faucet I bought, changed it, put it back, put it in, 1, 2, 3, voila. Putting a ceiling fan up, DIY. Remember when DIY was really popular? I remember when I first moved to Florida and bought my house in the late 80s and early 90s, and we would always go to Home Depot. And Home Depot always had people in every department that knew how to do electricity, how to do plumbing, and you would go to those departments, and Home Depot was always busy. Always busy. And if you wanted to do a project in your house, we didn't have the computer back then in the 90s. So you go to Home Depot and you go to that department, someone was always there, and you'd say, hey, this is what I want to do. Now they did have, like, when I built my house in Florida, I put my own sprinkling system in because I bought a VHS tape, yes, the videos, on how to put a sprinkling system in. And if they didn't have a video on stuff, you would ask the person that worked in that department that was a specialist, and they would tell you how to do it. Today you go to Home Depot, you got to go searching for somebody to look for to help you. It's like you spend half the time looking for an associate. All right, so we're coming to the end, and we need to attach another piece of rope. So before you run out, I'm going to lock this off. I'm going to hit a lock stitch. Cut it. All right, so at the end here, I want to trim this on an angle. And then I want to open up another package of rope and get this started here. Because we're going to splice two pieces together. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Alright, so get yourself a good pair of scissors. Cut this on an angle. Cut the end of the rope on an angle. And then the other rope, cut that on an angle, the new rope. Cut that on an angle. Okay? Alright. Then you get your lighter. And so you want to put these two together. They're both on a 45-degree angle. So you lightly hit it with heat, but not too much because you don't want to make it really hard. Just enough so it connects together. There we go. That's good enough. And it has to still be soft. Okay? Alright, so we're going to put this back in. You could do a lock stitch to start. And continue. I would love to hear from many of you in my comments about your family when you were growing up, your relatives. What do you remember them doing? How did they learn how to do things? Who taught them? Because see, back then, like in my great-grandparents, my grandparents' era, they would have the family members that teach them how to do things. They'd have neighbors that would show them. They worked at jobs that were manual labor jobs in construction and factories. So they all knew a lot how to do things. I remember the first house that I ever built. Actually, the first house I bought. I didn't build it. First house I ever bought was in the woods, right up the road from Lake Erie on the beach. And it was one of those needs loving care. Well, it was an old fishing shack that they kept adding on to it. People who owned that for years kept adding on to it. It was like adding modular home sections to it. Anyway, we went in there and tore all the walls down, and we put new plaster, new drywall up, ripped the floors up. We had to put new subflooring down, took this drop ceiling out. I remember when we took the drop ceiling out, all these dead mice started falling out. I'm serious. Anyway, the house needed a new roof. You're going to enjoy this story, guys. So it had tar paper on the roof. Now my friends and I, okay, now you gotta remember, we were a bunch of gay guys, all right? But we still knew how to do things, right? My friend Terry, he was so good at electricity, he still is to this very day. And he knew how to do a lot of things because he come from a family of many children, and his dad was a DIYer, his mom was a DIYer. So, I mean, they conserved and they knew how to make a dollar because they only lived on his father's income, and his father was a nurse. So they learned how to do and make things, grow the vegetables, all that. Well, anyway, so I bought shingles to put on the house, and all my friends, all my gay guy friends came over and they helped me put a new roof on. Okay? Well, this is something I didn't know how to do. I didn't know how to plumb a line and stuff like that, and I learned how to plumb and pound shingles in. Then I wanted to put a wind turbine up there for exhaust. Now here's something none of us ever thought of checking. There was 2 other layers of roof under the tar paper, and none of us ever thought to check. So when my friend Terry was drilling into the roof to put this wind turbine, he stopped and he looked at me, he goes, "Uh-oh." I said, "What?" He goes, there's 2 other roofs under this. I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "That means when the snow lands on this roof, you got a lot of weight on here." I said, "Is there good news?" He says, "Yeah, the good news is it's the beams of this roof are really solid and strong." So we talk about being wise. Well, now, if I would ever help anybody put a roof on, I'd say, you better check under and make sure there's no other roof under that tar paper, because that's something we learned the hard way back then. But I learned a lot about construction, about plaster, about a lot. That was my first home. We enclosed the garage for my photography studio. Learned how to cut a hole in the wall to put an air conditioning vent in and all that stuff. I mean, I was young. I was 20. How old was I? I was 23 when I bought that house. So, and I've never stopped doing things in every home that I've lived in. I love DIY stuff. Today, even if it's just putting a ceiling fan up, I love doing that stuff. How about you? Do you like doing that stuff too? Alright, so now that you know how to do this, I'm going to continue this. I'm going to put another couple rows of the red, and then when I'm done with this, I'll come back and show you the ending, how I do the edges, okay? I don't want to bore you anymore, which is watching you do all this and me gabbing away here. I'm running out of things to talk about right now. Imagine that. I'm running out of things to talk about. So I will just finish this up and come back and finish it up at the end to show you how I do it, okay? All right. All right, I wanted to pop in early before I finish and show you how I'm coming along with this. I did a second banding of the red. Here's what it looks like from underneath. And then I started to adjust the width of my stitches. I went from 5 to 4. I'm at 5. I went from 7 to 5 to 4. I'm at 5 right now. Look how nice that's coming out. Isn't that beautiful? A whole different look to these rope bowls. Another whole new look. All right, I'm going to continue now. And let me get so we just put it right back underneath. And I'm going to do a lock stitch. And then get going. Okay everybody, now we're going to do the red trim around the edge of the bowl. So I have my stitch width at 7.0 and I'm starting my stitch length out at 0.90. Okay, let's move on. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to change the foot. We're going to use the satin stitch foot, which is the letter F for this Janome machine. So we're going to take off our A foot and put on our satin stitch foot. Okay, so I'm going to start right about here. Now what I'm going to do is, if you can see, I've got the edge of the bowl riding against the edge of the right foot. Let me see if I can get in here closer for you. Alright, so you can see where the foot is, and the edge of the bowl, the top edge of the bowl, is riding against the right edge of the presser foot. That is where we're going to be sewing it. Always holding that there. Okay, so let me get started. And you'll be going over this bowl a few times. And I'm almost out of bobbin thread, so I'll have to change this. See, it's warning me. So I am going to tie this off. I can see the bobbin thread. I can still push it to empty it. I like to use everything up with it that I can. And since I can see it, I'm able to. I think that this is the last pass. It's covering very good. Look at the top. Yeah, this is good. This is covered. My edges are pretty much covered now. So let me go just a little bit further here. Now here's a trick. Wherever you want to lock it, like see how it's stopped on the right side? So now I'm going to hit my lock stitch button and the needle's going to move to the left to lock, and that's what it does on this Janome. But if your needle's on the left side and you hit the lock stitch button, it's going to move to the right, and since I have air here that I'm sewing on, it's just going to tie a knot on the air. I don't want that. So I stop on the right, I hit the lock stitch button, and then press on my foot pedal, and see it locks on the left. See that? And then scissor cut. These are little things that you don't really pay attention to that mean a lot. Okay, now I'm going to cut that thread there, and let's go and decorate this bowl now. Let's look at it right now. See? Look at that. And it looks like the edges are all pretty much covered. Now, one thing I want to tell you too is that if you have a little thread left over on the edge, you can hit it with a lighter just to burn it down. If it's polyester or nylon thread, it'll melt right down. That's why you see a lot of people who are bag makers on these videos. They take a lighter to the thread to melt it down, and that fuses it so it doesn't come apart. All right. Okay, let's go to my cutting table and let's do a little decorating. Okay, let's look at the bowl. There it is. Look how nice that came out. Didn't that come out nice? Oh, I got some thread here I have to cut. There we go. Ooh, how nice is that? Okay, and then I went to the Dollar Tree today. And what did I get at the Dollar Tree? Well, I got some of this. I got these silver flowers, these white flowers, red, more of a crimson metallic red here, some frosted pine cones, and I saw this little cute sleigh. I thought this cute sleigh would be nice. Look at that. And you say, well, how are we going to attach it? Hot glue gun. We're going to be crafty. We're going to be crafty. We're going to play RuPaul's Drag Race or Project Runway when they have to do everything at the last minute and they glue gun it all. Or people who don't know how to sew, they glue gun. So what I need to do, and I forgot to get it, so I'm going to pause this video. I need to get some wire clippers. Alright, so I got my wire cutters and I started cutting some flowers off, and now here's where you audition. This is what they call auditioning when you're creating, right? So what if I take these flowers and maybe glue all the way around the bowl, you know? This little sleigh, I can put hot glue on there and stick it right to there, and take some of the silver buds up here, put them in. We've got pine cones. You know, you trim that down. There we go. Hot glue some pine cones on. Now here's something I wasn't expecting when I did this. You see all the glitter on here? I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but this is going to be a vacuum cleaner when I'm done here. I don't know if it's because it's cheap dollar store stuff or if all the glitter things you buy everywhere do this, but yeah, this is not a project I would like, okay, like, oh my god, okay, well if I'm going to do this, next time I'm going to do it out in a garage, because this is not what I'm all about here. Alright, so let's see here. Let me see if I can trim this down a little closer. Yeah, I can trim it down a little closer. I can start hot gluing it. So let's put a little hot glue on here. Get this hot glue on there. Now I gotta get my stick going. There we go. Take some of that hot glue and glue it onto the bowl. Need a little more here. Alright, that's one. I'll do another. Oh, that'll look pretty, won't it? I think that'll look pretty. That'll look pretty. Oh, Ellie Mae, Uncle Jed's gonna love this. It's gonna look so pretty. Trim this down. Yeah. Oh God, please don't tell me I'm going to turn into a crafter after doing this. I don't need another project to do. I don't need any more. I have enough going on. I'm doing this to show you guys what you can do. You guys are bored, they need ideas, so here's the ideas for you. Should I do it all the way around? Nah, I think I'll just do up on the side here like this. And there it is. Put that on there. Oh, that's looking nice. That's gonna look real nice. And when you see, you set it down. Let's see what happens if I stick one of these in here. Let me trim this down. Oh, if I glue that under there like that, that would look nice. So let me add some hot glue right there. Put that on there. Well, that looks nice. This is looking really nice. I like that. Okay, what if I take another one, put it right over here? That would look nice, right? So let me do that. Stick that down just like that. Oh yeah. I'll tell you who's good at crafting is my sister. She can put a floral bouquet together like nobody's business. She's really good at this stuff. She's a good baker. She can do some amazing floral designs. Now what if I do this here? Or maybe I should put it up here. Then I can add this silver flower underneath. Let's put the silver, well, maybe not. Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, right there. That would look good. Alright, let's do that. Let's knock this stem down a little more, though. There you go. Let's get some hot glue all over this. And let's lay that right there. There we go. Ooh, got all over my finger. Well, that's nice. Put some glue here, lay that against it. There we go. Yeah, that's looking nice. But I still have these pine cones. So do I want to do just one side of flowers, or do I want to wrap it around the whole bowl? Well, you know, I guess that's up to you what you want. That would really be up to you. How about this pine cone? Will this pine cone look good there? I think that pine cone, well, I don't want to cover up that whole... What if I did underneath like this? I don't know. Get some more glue on that. Stick that there. So, look, there's all kinds of different ways to decorate. I think it's looking really nice. I think it's really, really nice now. But I want to put this on here. I really do want to put this little sled on there. So let me put some glue on the bottom here. Let's stick that on here. Hold that until it dries. Cools off, that is. That is so adorable. Oh my god, it's so adorable. So I can stick that in here if I wanted. I love it. I'm loving this. I'm really loving it. Maybe I could put a flower over here. Or I can put one there. Oh no, this would look good like that. But what about on the end over here? I could put it on the end. Or I could just leave it like this. I could just leave it all on one side like this. I think something needs to go right here. Another flower right there. Or, let's see, oh, here's where I could put that pine cone right there. Yeah! Alright, let's glob that glue on here, man. Let's glue the hell out of this thing. And let's stick that pine cone right there. Gonna slip that pine cone right in there. There we go. There we go. Can you see all that? Of course, I have some glue to pull apart. Okay, there it is. I'm gonna leave it just like that. Can you all see that? Let me clear all this away. And let me set it on the side. There it is. Pretty cute. I could put this flower right there. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll put one more flower. See, it gets addicting after a while. You're like, oh, should I do one more? Should I do one more? Should I do one more? Yeah, let's do one more right here. There we go. Ooh, baby. Who knew I was so damn crafty? Just a little more glue over here, just to make sure it holds well. There it is. And let me just set this up on here so you can see. And it is done. It is done. This is our finished gift holiday bowl. And like I said, if you want to do more, you can do more. You can wrap more around the sides. Maybe I want to put a flower there. Like that. That would look cute. But if I'm filling this up with anything, I don't want to mess that up. But I could put that right there. Couldn't I? I could put a flower right there like that. That won't be too bad. Let's trim this rest of the stem down. Let's put some more hot glue on this thing. And let's stick that right there. Just because I think it'll look good there. And there it is. Okay, I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to leave it alone before I do too much. Alright, so I hope this inspired you. I know possibly I may see these on the sewing groups. I hope I do, because this is fun. This is something I wanted you to have fun doing. And it's another way of doing a rope bowl for the holidays. Okay, so you've got another way, creative way of making a rope bowl. Okay guys, take care. I will talk to you in my next video. And you know, just enjoy sewing, and make sure you study the mechanics of your machine and everything. It's very, very important. Very important. Then you won't have to write on these groups, why is my thread bunched up? Why is this? Why is that? Take your time, read your manual, take some in-person classes on machine operation, you know, study your notions, understand all that stuff, because sewing, like I said, it's not hard. It's like driving a car. And how much do you want to drive? Do you want to just pull in a regular parking lot and back out? Or you want to be creative and to be able to do some parallel parking? It's up to you how far you want to push your craft. All right, take care. Talk to you later. Bye.